Welcome back to Observing the Sabbath. I'm your host, Nathaniel Molnar. I'm joined once again by Johnny Gifford. Johnny, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Always a pleasure.
And we are here to close out our look at the 1971 album by Black Sabbath called Master of Reality. It's funny how in our the last video that we did together, I was talking about how Sabbath always they have a strong opener, a really strong conclusionary song, and a kick-ass middle song that's really strong. And for this album, the two of us have talked about all three of those songs. We talked about the strong opener, the strong conclusionary song, and the strong middle song.
And I never, before you said that in our last video we did together, I never really thought about how they structure albums specifically that way. But it's very clear that consistently throughout all their albums they're doing this. And not only that, but when you asked me which songs I'd like to come on to do, my immediate thought was, oh, these three songs for sure, they're like the strongest on the album. And it's just like that's so consistent across the board on all their studio albums, really.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So it's kind of funny how that worked out that way. But we are here to talk about Into the Void, which I'll obviously during this video, I'm going to talk a lot about how much I love Into the Void. But this is my favorite song off of Master of Reality. This is probably, may not be a top 10, definitely a top 15 Sabbath. It may actually be a top 10. I keep telling my audience that as soon as I go through, which I have no idea how long that's going to take me, but as soon as I go through every single song and do all the albums for the Ozzy era, I will do an official ranking of all the songs and where they stand.
That's going to be huge.
That is going to be huge, which I'm excited to do. It may be 15 years from now, but but I will be doing that, and I'll have to decide exactly where everything stands. But Into the Void is definitely a top 15, maybe a top 10. I just think the song is just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But we're gonna get all into the Void. But as I say every video, I just want to let everybody know this is not a first-time reaction video. There's a bunch of those on YouTube. I love them; they're great. I love watching them, but that's not what this is. Johnny and I have heard the song before, and we're going to be talking during the song. We're going to be commentating, giving you all our thoughts on the song as we listen. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to listen to Into the Void. And now.
Nice slow riffs. Yep.
Very slow. I love this. It's methodically slow. I love it. It's just so well done. It really brings it down. It just absolutely brings it down to this very now I'm not really good with labels and stuff for songs, but the first thing that when I hear this, I think grunge.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not really a genre label person for music, but that's what I think grungy, dirty, kind of slower for this, and I just really like how it's constructed.
And a lot of grunge that was really up and coming in the late 80s and the 90s, hugely inspired by Black Sabbath and by just their peers and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. I like this thing.
This is pre-grunge almost.
Yeah, I like to think that everything was inspired by Black Sabbath.
Yeah. But I'd say most things were.
Yeah. But this song is just so well orchestrated and constructed. And an observation I made during, I think it was the Paranoid, at some point when I was talking about that, is that each of the conclusionary songs, the final songs for each album, specifically Black Sabbath, Paranoid, and Master of Reality, you have sort of this elongated instrumental part at the beginning of the song before you get to any of the vocals, which is interesting because you have that with A Bit of Finger / Sleeping Village / Warning for Black Sabbath. You have that with Fairies Wear Boots. You have that for this. Not so much Under the Sun for Volume 4, but then you definitely have that for Spiral Architect. And then you also have that for the Riff. So it's interesting the way that they do that. I don't know if that's a purposeful or not, but it's kind of interesting how they have that constructed.
Absolutely. Yeah, they like to close with something really powerful, and especially the way that they start out slow. They get it's not necessarily even faster, but just they give you an energy boost. And now we're here at this first like little bridge part, and it's even more of a little energy boost because they're playing some different riffs and stuff, you know. And now we're gonna get into our second verse here, and you know, once again, really just talking about like a dystopia, like a nuclear dystopia type thing, which they've definitely done before. And they're just kind of creating a whole other world for themselves. They're not like talking about drugs, and they're not talking about just like current issues and political climates, but they're just like kind of exploring, I guess, sort of based on a lot of contemporary issues, but they're just kind of exploring different worlds and everything. Like talking about this verse in particular is talking about like, you know, rocket engines burning so fast, it's burning through the atmosphere, like leaving Earth, flying right into the sun, like freedom from the final suicide.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like, so you do have that sort of structure in the beginning of the lyrics where it's sounding like it's more just space exploration. But then when you get into the latter part of the song, you realize that the reason that they're leaving Earth is because it's been destroyed from the pollution that they say in the song, which for them to be talking about pollution in 1971 is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. That, once again, they're just like pioneers of so many different things and what they're singing about.
A funny little side note. So when they did the SpaceX launch a couple of months ago, I guess I didn't really know too much about this until I was reading about it, but I guess it's sort of a typical thing that once the astronauts go up into the air, they will play a song for their first song when they wake up. And the song that they played was Planet Caravan for the SpaceX launch. And and there was an article going around about it, and Geezer Butler, I think it was Geezer, quoted it on Twitter and wrote that like something like, "That's funny, maybe next time they'll play Into the Void, or Into the Void will be more fitting next time," or something like that. And it's like, you're absolutely right.
That's where we're headed.
Exactly. But this song is just so great because first of all, the main riff is just so excellent, but the way that they kind of construct it and going back and forth between different riffs, it's just sort of, it's classic Sabbath for me. It's like, this is what Sabbath is that it's a collection of riffs they kind of go back and forth between, and different collections of riffs that they're going back and forth between. It's just so well done.
Yeah, no, just really taking like a lot of traditional song structures and just throwing it through the window and just saying like, all right, we have all these like really cool parts that sound good together, but we're just gonna kind of interweave between a bunch of them, and just, you know, they come back to some are fleeting, but they don't care about keeping any sort of traditional song structure. Like, yeah, they have a bridge verse type thing at points, but then they have like all these different riffs that they're going back and forth between, and then they speed up at one point, and then immediately like after that slows down, and then they speed up eventually, you know. And then here we are, kind of like our climax point.
This is my favorite part of the song.
I love how the solo is just going from right to left if you're listening to it with headphones.
Yes, and on speakers, it's so cool to hear.
Yeah, yep.
Like, it's like, their songs are all like, it's building up and de-escalating and building up and de-escalating and then kind of building up again, and then it takes off. Like, it's literally, all their songs are like these sort of musical journeys. Like, lots of like roller coaster up and down throughout all their songs, and this song definitely has that.
Yeah, it does, and we're approaching the end right here.
Yes.
Ending really strong on this one, too.
Yeah, and for the end of the album, it's such a strong ending.
Yeah, it's weird. They have like a little effect at the end of it where like when they hit their last hit, it's just like a ton of reverb or something is added to it. It just makes it sound super spacey.
Yeah.
Like for a split like few seconds, it like kind of tails off for a while. And which I find really interesting, opposed to like having more of the hard stop like you would expect for it being like driving up until the very end. You'd expect it to just kind of stop, but they just kind of leave it like it's more of like a boom at the end. Kind of, you know, what, following the song in a way, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, like you almost imagine
Flying
it's
into
the
the sun
sound
or something.
Yeah, like it's the sound of like the rocket engine just like as the rocket
Yeah,
goes off into space, and you just have the
absolutely.
dissonance of like the rest of space as it kind of leaves the atmosphere.
Yeah, no, I think it's really, once again, really powerful of just like lyrics to music kind of working together there.
Absolutely. Yeah, this song is just so well done, so well constructed. I think personally, if you're looking at the construction of a Sabbath song and the way, like the choices in terms of when do we go to this riff, when do we go to that part, when do we go back to this riff that we had before, when you look at the way it's constructed, you don't get any better than Into the Void. Like, it
No.
is just pure masterpiece in terms of just pure construction.
Yeah, and like if you're just listening to a song like that, just kind of passively, you wouldn't really notice all these different changes, and you're just like, oh yeah, no, this makes sense. These are all parts of the same song working together. But if you're really looking at like the way a lot of these parts connect and change, it's just like it's crazy how they are so tight on going back to certain riffs and then abandoning them for like a couple minutes and then just going to so many different things and then coming back to different things. It's just like once again you can really like hear the way it was so thoughtfully produced, like in a studio. They really sat down and thought about it instead of just like slapping together a song structure and calling it a day.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very good point. It definitely feels thought out.
Hmm.
And not to say that their other songs don't feel thought out,
Yeah,
but
right.
I think there's something particular about this song, the way that it's constructed, is that it feels like they really were working on this for a while to get it just right.
And
And
I think in general they do that a lot on this album too.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, with that being our final song on the album, what would you say? And I'll go more into this personally when I do my album review for Master of Reality. But I want to know, Johnny, what are your overall thoughts on the album?
This is probably my favorite Black Sabbath album. Um, Despite me just being a real sucker for like really raw and live kind of sounding things, the fact that they really just took so much time to think about this album and to produce it, it really goes to show. Because the earlier stuff, while it's still strong, just doesn't sound as, I guess, this one just feels more full to me. Even though it still possesses a lot of live and raw qualities, they're taking those live and raw qualities and they're just like adding layers onto it to make it like a professional sounding album. Not even to say their other albums don't sound like that, but this one just sounds less of like a, oh, we're just like a rock band playing some music, and more of like we are a serious band playing serious music in a way, you know?
Yeah, I see that. It's sort of like a maturity for them.
Yeah, I'd say this is like up until this point in their career, like this is their culmination. And of course, you can talk about Volume 4 and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and after that, but if you're looking at all their work up until this album, this is like their culmination. This is like where they really started to like get it, I feel like.
Yeah, it's sort of like, so you have Black Sabbath, which shows everybody what Black Sabbath can be.
Yeah.
And then Paranoid sort of defines for a lot of people what Black Sabbath is. And then Master of Reality is like Black Sabbath themselves saying, this is what we can be.
Yeah, this is like their truest form and like their most
Mhm.
I don't even know, like just hitting the most potential that they can hit, I feel like, with
Yeah.
this album.
And I, for myself, I wouldn't say it is maybe their truest form, but it's not their final form.
No, not at all. Not at all their
Uh,
final form.
because and I can't wait to dive into Volume 4.
Mhm. I
Because
love Volume 4.
I have so much to say about
Yeah.
Volume 4. I will say now, though, that my thoughts on Volume 4 have changed drastically since I got it on vinyl and have listened to it as a full record. Because Volume 4 has always been like one of my favorite albums.
Yeah.
But hearing it as like on vinyl and everything, it has become my favorite Black Sabbath record because it is it's so jam packed and like everything works together so well. And I don't think there's not that there are really bad songs on any albums, but there's no song that I look at as sort of a weak link.
Yeah,
You know?
no, Volume 4 is just banger after banger, really.
It really is. So I'm gonna cut myself off there before I start going on a whole tangent about Volume 4. I'll save that for the next video series. But anyways, that was Into the Void, and that was Master of Reality. Really great, just great song, great album as a whole. So make sure to leave all of your thoughts on all these videos in the comment section below, because as I did for Black Sabbath and as I did for Paranoid, I will be taking all of your thoughts and your comments that you leave in the comment section, and I'll be discussing them in a comment section video. So you'll want to make sure you get them all in for all of your thoughts on all the different songs for Master of Reality. And our next video will be an album review where I'll just kind of wrap up all my thoughts that I've been talking about this whole time on Master of Reality before we move on to Volume 4. So once again, I'm your host, Nathaniel Molnar. I'd like to thank Johnny Gifford. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I had an absolute blast talking about this album.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you could be here, and we'll definitely have you back to talk about a couple of songs on Volume 4.
I look forward to it.
So that's going to do it for me. And until our next video, until I do my album review for Master of Reality, thank you for watching.